Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmitz, and this is episode 27. I've got Jess Hopp with me here. She's the co-founder of The Nest and founder of the Planner Collective. Some of the worst advice she's ever heard is this: give it 5 years. She says, no way, go all in. No side hustle, all in on one thing, be fearless. You're going to love this conversation. Hold tight. We'll be right back. All right, you want to know why? Well, I'll tell you why. My why is to use my presence and my prose to inspire you to go all in on you so that you live a legacy worth leaving. Again, to use my presence and my prose to inspire you to go all in on you so that you live a legacy worth leaving. And I want to inspire 1 billion people to live a legacy worth leaving by 2030. That's 10 years. That's 100 million people per year. So let's go. Join me in this mission to help equip the world for success and inspire 1 billion people to live a legacy worth leaving. All right. So I'm with the Jess Hopp.
Love that.
She's co-founder of The Nest, which is where we're sitting right now. It's our environment, which is so awesome. Lovely space. And you guys have been here since January?
January, yeah.
Awesome.
Opened the first week of January.
Yes, and that's not the only thing that Jess does, though. Mm-hmm. She also is the sole owner of the Planner Collective.
Planner Collective.
Mm-hmm. Botched it. On air.
That's okay.
Jess, this is awesome, and I know this might be especially awesome for you because you had a dream as a kid to be a DJ.
I wanted to be a radio DJ. I don't know where it came from, but as a kid, I would just sit and listen to Delilah, if you're familiar with that radio show, and I loved how she connected with people, and then the music influenced the story and the connection, and it was just so cool. So that was my dream, to be a DJ.
You brought me back. Man, I haven't thought about that.
Delilah at night.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
What was that, WIXX, or what was that?
Oh, I don't know. I grew up in Milwaukee, so it was on 99.1.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. You're
awesome.
welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Nostalgia right there. So yeah, that was my dream.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I love music, so.
Yeah, well, that makes it. Are you a musician? Do you sing? Play?
I sing.
Nice.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I was the theater kid in high school.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite theater that you did from your glory days at all, or show?
Guys and Dolls.
Okay.
That was a fun one.
Fine. And you grew up in Milwaukee?
I did. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So my little sister is big into theater. Well, my whole family is. I'm a musician. But theater never, I did theater, but it wasn't ever my thing, so I'm glad that
choir,
it's your thing. So.
I was there.
Yeah. Oh,
I was that one. Madrigals.
Alto?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice, okay.
Yep.
All right, okay.
Nailed it.
Well, Jess, man, I'm so excited to have you on the show. We're going to have a blast. I have no idea who you are. Right?
Great.
And that's what I love about these conversations, that they're unscripted, unprompted, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just us getting to know your story, which is really cool. And but our listeners, aside from probably who you've shared it with in network, I have no idea who Jess is either. So do us a favor. And who are you? Tell us.
That's so funny that you're the Jess Hopp, because that's how people, I don't know, that goes well together. People have said that, so I love it.
Yeah.
So I did not grow up in Green Bay. A lot of people think I did because my parents moved here too, so.
Okay.
But I call Green Bay home. It's like when you're an adult and you can choose where to live. Yeah. I think that's the most powerful thing. So I lived here for a while, and then I moved out to Minneapolis and experienced a larger city, more things happening. And then I went through a divorce, a separation from my ex, and moved back to Green Bay. And I came back kicking and screaming. I did not want to come back to Green Bay. But it's actually been the best decision for me in my life and my relationships and my career.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So how long were you out in Minneapolis?
About 2 years.
And when was that?
2 years ago. Yeah, so I moved back.
So we moved back probably about the same time. So I was in Minneapolis for about 8 years. That's where I married married my wife. Had to start a family. We just weren't big city folks,
right?
So we came back not kicking and screaming. But so did you?
That's good.
You moved back about the same time, about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Fun.
Yep.
Minneapolis it's a great. I call it a small big city. Lots to really appreciate about it, but at the end of the day, our biggest problem this day is driving all the way over to the east side because that's where Costco is. So
yes,
20 minutes away, so.
I know. It's Green Bay problems, east west.
Yeah, and that's awesome, and super exciting things have been going on here for you, especially recently. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what it is exactly that you're doing right now, both with the Planner Collective and the Nest, and then kind of walk us through the evolution. Like, how'd you get here?
Oh man, yeah.
How'd you go from DJ to business owner?
DJ to business owner. Yeah. I'm not even a DJ, so please don't start that.
We can change that. We can change it. I know.
I'm so excited. Yeah. No, but how did this all come about? So I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial family. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. My parents are in education, and so I was asked from when I was like kindergarten, first grade, so are you going to be a teacher? And that just really wasn't my vibe, my style. Even in like second grade, I was like, I can't be in this building all day. Like, I knew that about myself, and I thought that was really enlightening when I think back to like being in a school environment. You're just like stuck somewhere for like 8 to 12 hours as a teacher, and that just did not appeal to me. So I went down this path of like, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? And like, I love theater. I love connecting with people. I'm more of an introvert though, so like my energy comes from being alone and being like reading and being around plants and nature and stuff. So that's really where my energy comes from. But I grew up doing music and theater and sports, and my dad would take me to Broadway musicals, and so like a lot of my creativity comes from that space. And then I went to UWGB, graduated from there with public relations and communications degree, which was so broad and so basic. That was perfect. So then I started doing event planning, and I worked for On Broadway here downtown, and that really started my journey of event planning. And it's more, to me, events are more about gathering people and having them all to come together for one mission and a movement, basically. And it's such an awesome entry point for people to learn about things, to learn about education, to learn about healthcare, to learn about communities. It starts with events. And so that's really where my passion drives from, and gathering people together and educating them and getting them excited and having them create their own little pocket of people. That makes me really, really excited. So that's how that all started, was an internship. So I advocate internships up and down, because if I didn't do an internship, I would not have known that event planning was so broad. So I moved from being an intern to then being a staff member, and then I worked for Bellin, and I worked in their department doing events, so I got to see healthcare side of things, and then I moved into higher education and saw higher education events and how that's really more about fundraising and bringing in delegates and like just gaining influence for educators. And then I moved out to Minneapolis, and during that time I was so burned out on events. I was like, I cannot plan another event. Please don't ask me. It was just like so much. So then at that time I started freelancing events. I started supporting other event planners because it's such a burnout. Like the average life of an event planner is probably 2 years.
Wow.
So I really wanted to create a space where event planners could feel supported and like they didn't have to do the hustle. They didn't have to do the grind. So that's really where the Planner Collective started. Was me just like following my intuition and following what I wanted to do. And then I moved back to Green Bay, and it just kind of took on this life of its own, and I started planning events and helping event planners and just finding what I like to do and what I didn't like to do.
Yes. So with the work that you're doing at the Planner Collective, are you doing events and helping event planners?
So it's just kind of morphed. So right now we're doing even in-person events, so like conferences, retreats, business. I don't do weddings. That's not really my style. So I'm
that's
more
like
like
a whole niche in and of itself.
That is an entire industry. And so I really focus on corporate events, retreats, and then we also do online launches. So the online space is so incredible to just like dive into. And I had a client who came to me and was like, I really want to do a digital course. Like, do you know anybody who would do it? And I really thought about it, and it's basically an event, but in an online format. So I took everything that I know for events and I transitioned it into an online format of launches. And it's just been an incredible opportunity for us. So yeah, and then that allowed me to build a team and grow my business in that way. Yeah.
Hey, this is Kyle. Well done on your decision today to be great. Those are my kiddos in the background. Hey, if you want more of this kind of content, find me on social media. We'll keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at StartWithWNTD. Again, at StartWithWNTD. We'll see you there.
And then we have the Nest.
And then you have the Nest.
Yes, which also was like in tandem when I moved back to Green Bay. I was part of a co-working space out in Minneapolis. It was called Coco, but it's now called Field Collective. And so I was a part of that space just as a member, and I found so much opportunity and connection and networking and resources. And I came back to Green Bay, and there was nothing like that.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I was like, where are all the female entrepreneurs? Where are they? And so it's just this underground movement of women working from coffee shops, working from their home. And so we wanted to bring everyone together, and this is a physical embodiment of the underground work that's happening.
Yeah, I can imagine the collaboration, the creativity. So the co-working space is it's a newer thing, right? To an extent.
Yep.
And depending on where you're at, but that's one of the awesome things of it. It's not always necessarily super quiet, but it can be. But then the collaboration that can happen between companies, organizations, folks that might start a business together, which is super cool. And so you're kind of pulling in all those minds here and say, like, let's find a spot together, the nest. Like, let's, in a sense, is that kind of the idea?
That's
of,
totally
like, let's
what
nest
it is.
together?
Yes, let's nest together.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it is. It's about building community and building relationships and really moving your business forward by being together and being supported and resourced and nourished and, not lone wolfing it, right?
For sure. Yeah, what's I guess I'm thinking of the term, like, some folks do like a mastermind group, like for their industry.
Yep.
There's a similar current, like, in co-working spaces, to where it's not like an official mastermind, and it's not that everyone's on, going the same direction, but there's that idea of just learning from one another.
Oh, yeah.
And best practices, and how did you do this, or I had this idea, or I want to do an e-course, or whatever it might be, and that's just super powerful, right?
Watching each other scale is the most incredible part, or people coming here and just feeling inspired that they can really do anything that they want to do, right? Like we're the master of our own destiny, and I think that's really what we're trying to create here.
And that's huge too. So, like, what's the saying that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, right? And so it's like, if you're floating through life and you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing and where I'm going, and you need to get around people that are inspiring to you, exactly what you just said. And this gives an awesome option for women. And now, would you say that it's women that have an entrepreneurial bent, or they're just exploring, or could they be working somewhere, or kind of like, who's a sweet spot as far as, like, man, get over to the nest today, right? Who needs to be here?
I think it's every person that you mentioned, right? Like, it's people who are currently an entrepreneur and they're just grinding it out, hustling, thinking that that's the energy that they need, that masculine energy of, like, hustle and grind. But really, where the magic happens is more in, like, that feminine energy of being in flow and following your intuition. And so I would say, like, men, women, like, anybody who really wants to live an intentional life in that way, this place is for you. It's the nest.
Cool. And are men welcome here?
Oh, yes. We get that question a lot. So we're female forward.
Okay, cool. And so explain that for our listeners, because they might be like, well, I thought it was just for women, and I thought it was a women co-working space. So, like, so unpack that. What does that mean? What does female forward mean?
So, to me, female forward means advancement of and being inclusive of all people, all human beings. The way that I've experienced business is more relationship, and that, to me, that's a more feminine energy to build relationships, to be authentic. And so that's what we're trying to bring here, is that female forward energy. So you don't, like, this isn't a women only space, but we're really attracting that mindset.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Great. Okay, so the Planner Collective.
Yes.
The Nest. Why?
Yeah.
You wake up every morning and you're giving yourself to these things.
Yeah.
Right? To really bringing like-minded folks together to go do something great in the world, right? And because that's really the idea of, it's a shift of mindset from like, well, I'm just going to, I went to school for 18 years, 8 to 5, so I could go to college for 4 years, 8 to 5, kind of live for the weekend. So I just go get a job somewhere else and live 8 to 5. And you're saying, I think there's more to life than that. You've experienced that for yourself. You are bringing in, men and women together that are thinking in that direction. And they're saying and hopefully inspiring other folks to maybe, not that working for someone else is a bad thing.
Right.
But saying what do you want to do? Don't have that path chosen for you. Choose the path that you want, right?
Yeah.
And so why give your life, your time, your energy to this kind of work? Why not go to a cabin in the mountains and just read, right?
Oh my God, I'd be so bored. Stop. I don't know, my passion, and I didn't even realize it was a passion until I really let myself experience it and dig into it. But my passion is really supporting women to just live their best lives and be their best selves.
Cool.
And be seen and be heard on a larger platform. So that's kind of like the central piece.
Yeah.
And then everything else that I do kind of spokes off of that.
That's awesome.
So the Planner Collective is all about working with passionate, growth-minded entrepreneurs to create events, online launches, to help them scale and be seen and be heard. And I work with majority women. And so there's a lot of coaching and mindset that goes around that I just kind of become that person to be like, you can do this, go out, be seen. And then the Nest is a whole another spoke that is the same, kind of the same vein. It's like, you are worthy of being in a space that supports you, and you don't have to do it all alone. You don't have to put everybody else first. You can actually go out and do the thing and get supported behind the scenes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's given that platform, and I love what you said, to be seen and be heard. And
everyone wants to be acknowledged.
Yeah,
that's totally what it is.
Yeah, and it seems like, and I guess you can affirm this, it seems like when you say scale, you don't mean just professionally. You also mean personally. I don't know that you can really divorce the two, right?
No.
And so that's really cool. You are giving that kind of platform for primarily women, but also for men that come on in. That can scale professionally and personally, to be seen and be heard, and to go do something great with their lives.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So that's really my why. That's why I do everything, and I haven't always had that why. It's taken me a while to find it. So if there are people out there who are like, where is my why, or what, why hasn't this come to me yet? It takes a lot of personal growth work, a lot of mindset work.
Oh, yeah.
Because when I was in corporate environments, I definitely lived in the should kind of life. I shoulded myself.
You got shit on a lot.
Yeah, I got shit on a lot.
Yeah.
And so getting out of that mindset of, I don't have to live my life for somebody else. I don't have to live my life based around these principles or values that, society kind of tells us what to do. And I am enough for wanting my life to go in the direction that I want.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't need the assurance, not assurance, but you know what I mean? Acceptance and all of that. I'm living my life how I want it to be.
Yeah. And
I'm attracting people who also want to live their life the way they want to live it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you talk to any 5-year-old, and they're going to go take over the world.
Yeah.
Right? And then somewhere along the way, we were told that wasn't reasonable. We can't do that. The world wasn't ever meant to be conquered, and you just fit right here. And it's kind of almost like having to undo so many years, decades of experience and programming to say look, it's more than this. We need to learn how to dream big again.
Yeah.
And not just dream, but then to bring those dreams to reality with a plan and to execute on that. And that's such a huge thing, that mindset. Learning how to think again, how to think so big because of how small we think. We think we can only do this or fit in this little space here. It's just like, hold on, it says who, right? And to your point, I think so much of that comes from caring way too much about other people think.
Yes.
And one of the hardest things is that we'll have different mentors in life, different advisors, people we really esteem and respect that will tell us, hey, you should not do this. Or they'll speak strongly against it. And it's like, and it's like, maybe I shouldn't do this, right? And it's saying like, yeah, okay, maybe you shouldn't, right? So take the advice, but take it objectively because maybe you should, right? And that takes a lot of courage, a lot of boldness to be able to recognize that maybe I think too small. Maybe there's so much more, and I want to step out. I just don't know where to go or how to do it. Listening to people that we love and care about and esteem and respect that differ with us and disagree on us, and you want to go in this direction. Yeah. And one of the cool things is what you're saying about this space is that there's a place where people are for you and want to help you to think big, and want to help you in that direction, and can, in a sense, send you on your way.
Yeah, that's totally what it is. A number of members that like stick out in my mind, it's just like unsure. It's the unknown that's really scary, and it's scary to step into. And so when you have people there who are rooting you on and helping you and navigating it, it's a huge game change. Yeah. 100%. And even to what you were talking into, so on the other side of the scale is imposter syndrome, and I feel like that's an internal thing that we carry around, like we don't know enough, we're not good enough to put ourselves out there. And so breaking through those barriers, and then to your point of having mentors tell you not to do something, sometimes that's our own limiting beliefs getting in the way, so you have to navigate that too.
Exactly. Yeah, well said.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, and only if you think the show deserves it, would you go over to Apple Podcasts and give us an honest, thoughtful 5-star review? This will really help us in our mission to equip the world for success.
Well, we are drinking some good coffee, and I'm wondering what kind of coffee are we drinking?
We're drinking coffee from the Exchange.
The Exchange.
We have it on tap every day
on tap.
At the Nest.
That's awesome. So confessions, I've only been to the Exchange twice, and my first time was like a week ago. I know. I don't know. I just never got over to the Exchange. I heard great things about it, and when I walked in today, it was amazing.
Well, it was amazing. Our fourth co-founder, Sonny Hennessy,
cool.
owns the Exchange.
Okay.
And so that's why we have Exchange coffee.
Fun.
Yep.
So, well, then that makes sense. So, go get yourself some Exchange.
Yep.
If you're not working at the Nest, then go drink it in-house. And I think I had their food is phenomenal.
Oh, it totally is.
I had like a Philly cheesesteak on a waffle. Like, who does that?
The Exchange.
Yeah. But super cool. And then just the ambience and everything was just really neat. So really cool space.
Yeah,
and
Sunny designed that space as well. So she designed our space here.
Nice.
So that's why it's very comfortable.
Yeah.
It feels like you're in a home, but not.
Yeah.
So we just want to be people's third space.
Yeah, and I love that. Darker kind of grayish blue. That's Kyle's style. That's true.
Have you trademarked that yet? Kyle's style.
No, but I should.
There you go. You should.
If you're listening, your name is Kyle. Don't touch it. I have analytics and data. I'll find it.
I can figure this out.
Oh, this is cool. So let's get into it. I love this segment. We're going to talk about what you did right, what you did wrong, and what you do differently, which is fun. And I'm sure our listeners are curious because, as far as I know, Jess is just perfect. Right? She's never made a mistake in her life. And they just can't wait for the juicy details. Right?
Oh gosh. Okay.
But you have had some great success. I think that's definitely worth celebrating. It's awesome. Yeah. And you wouldn't have had that if you had made every wrong decision till there was no one to mend, right? So I'm curious, as you look back, from where you are today. What are a few things that just come to the top of mind? Like, this was a really right decision. Sometimes you can't quantify it. Sometimes it's hard to even qualify. But you look back and say, like, that was massively right, and I would unabashedly tell anyone, hey, this is a really right decision. This really contributed to my success.
Yeah.
What's that for Jess?
I mean, the biggest one for me is getting married and getting divorced. Like, I learned so much about myself in the process of both being married and going through a separation that was very conscious driven, if that makes sense. We consciously divorced, so there was no anger or like we didn't have that. We really were able to talk through it and be friends through it and partners moving forward, which is you usually don't hear about that. So when I was going through it, I was telling a lot of people about it, and I did a lot of Facebook Lives on it, because there's that one way to get divorced, and it's kicking and screaming and lawyers and fighting. And I don't have kids, but we didn't go the route of just being not good humans to one another. So yeah, I learned a lot about myself in the process of what I did want and what I didn't want.
Yeah.
And the life that I wanted to live versus the life that I was living. So yeah, I definitely made a conscious choice moving forward.
Yeah. And so some people might be like, well, so what was right about that? And if I'm hearing you right, I think what you're saying is you weren't afraid to get married in the first place.
No.
Because, marriage is wonderful, but it's also work, right? Just like any human relationship, except now you get to be with this person a lot longer, right?
Yeah.
And you're combining two worlds and two visions and priorities and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you're also saying you weren't afraid to acknowledge when it was wrong, when it was maybe, and this might not be your word, but maybe destructive for you both, or just not helpful, like not helping you to, and you're saying you weren't afraid to do it, and you weren't afraid to be done.
Right.
Is that how you would say it? Or?
Yeah, great job. Thank you. That's exactly what I mean.
Sure, yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to get your words, but yeah, that's totally what it is. There's always a light and a dark, so
yeah,
you gotta just take it and what you learn from it and who you become through it. And these past 2 years have been my largest personal growth in my life, hands down. Moving back to Green Bay. Yeah,
which is huge. And sometimes you don't. Well, how far can we see in front of us, right? I mean, we can't even know what this afternoon holds, right?
Yeah. But we try and control it.
We try to, yeah.
we try very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's letting go of that control and surrender. That's a big thing for me this year in 2020 is to surrender. I'm still trying to figure out what that word means to me and how I can do that.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you want to surrender your bank account, you can donate to.
Yes, thank
you. I'm teasing. Cool. And that's challenging. It seems like there can be stigmas both around getting married and getting divorced in our day and age, and different lenses that come into play. And I think marriage is such a good thing, and it's so good for society.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
And then, but there's I think some folks. Might come from you never divorce ever, no matter what.
That was my family. That was for sure my family.
Sure.
So it was really hard to even acknowledge that my relationship and my marriage wasn't what I wanted or what he wanted, and we just both wouldn't acknowledge it because we were just brought up in this space of you don't do that.
Yeah.
And you just push everything under a rug, and you work a 9 to 5, and you have babies and that's it, right. You go to Disney once in a while, right?
Once a year, right?
Yeah. So it was I definitely shook up a lot of things in my family, and it was a learning curve for me for sure.
Yeah. So I guess, and you can let me know if this is, if you don't want to, chat about it. But I guess what was that process for you of you felt like, both you and your ex-husband couldn't talk about it because of, family opinions and all kind of stuff. And it's kind of like what we were talking about before about being afraid of what other people are going to think, people that love us, and respect, all kind of stuff. So I guess where did it come to you and finally came to a point where you did start to talk about it, and why? Because I think that it seems like to me that'd be a major part of getting this right?
It was a huge turning point. To even, number one, acknowledge it. There's a lot of pain and shame in acknowledging that my marriage was falling apart on me and around me, when I really painted a picture that everything was great and, we moved to Minneapolis, it's so fun. And inside I was going through a major depression and it was just a really hard time for me in my life. But I remember sitting in a local pizzeria in Minneapolis, and we honestly sat there for probably 3 hours. And I started the conversation. I'm like, this just isn't working anymore, is it? And so we just literally sat in a booth for 3 hours and just kind of came to that realization, both of us, like, you're right. So, like, what do we do now? And then we went home. Right? So, like, what is that path then? And so it's really listening to your intuition, allowing, like, we all have gut feelings on things, and just allowing that to drive us forward. So, yeah, that was my experience in a pizza shop.
Yeah, wow. It wasn't Pizza Luce, was it?
It was.
It was. So good.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, and I'm just like bawling in the middle of a pizza shop. But anyway.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I can imagine. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, super difficult. But, I hope people, whatever the situation might be in life,
it opened me up to so much.
Yeah.
It completely did. And I'm not saying that was wrong or bad for my life, but it's just like, I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason. And so I was meant to go through that. We were meant to go through that together, so then I could, like, quote unquote, like, find myself. I know it's kind of cheesy, but I needed that, because we met in college. We got married like right after we graduated, and then we were married all of our 20s. And I didn't know who I was. He didn't know who he was. And so we kind of got to our 30s and we're like, whoa, who are you? Who am I? Like, just kind of that awakening. And that was a pivotal moment in my life for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, it seemed like for folks that are listening, wherever, you might find yourself, like, whether it has to do anything with a relationship or not, not being, not sweeping things under the rug, right?
Right.
And having the courage just to kind of take a real look at the situation and move forward. And that's what you're saying you did right here, which was huge for you, right?
Yeah.
And that's not easy to do. It takes a lot of courage and boldness. And it's not easy, but contributed to your success today, which is huge. So
yeah, it's definitely a turning. It's like that turnkey, right? It just opens a door, and then you go through it. And you don't know what's on the other side of that door, but you figure it out.
You're like, why did it take me so long to open the door? Right?
Yep. Because you were like pounding on the door, like kicking the door, and all you had to do was turn the handle. Right.
Try before you pry.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, what else? As you're looking back, was a great success for you, or something that you did right that really contributed to your success?
Moving back to Green Bay.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was kicking and screaming moving back to Green Bay, but it was actually exactly what I needed in my life. And I was kicking and screaming because I was so in my head about it, and I was like, everyone's going to judge me, and I'm going through a divorce, and no one's going to want to talk to me, and who am I going to, become friends with, and I'm starting this business, and what am I doing? It was all that questioning, and then I would say within like a month of moving back, it was just like, I found a coach, I found a place to live, all these things started to fall in place. I created an amazing community and friend group that actually brought the nest to fruition. I can't discount moving to Green Bay because it's given me everything right now.
And you said you found a coach.
I did.
That sounds like something you did right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I was definitely of the mindset, and I don't know if you do astrology or anyone listening that does astrology, but I'm a Virgo, and so I'm a high level of detail, high level planner. I'm very stubborn. I feel like I can do everything on my own, and I don't need anybody, right? Push away a lot. And I hired a coach, and it was the best decision that I made for myself going through that transition of life and starting a business. Because if I didn't have somebody to, again, be that light for me, be that accountability for me, I would definitely be in a corporate job. I would not have had the strong mindset that I do right now, if not for having a coach.
Yeah, but doesn't a coach cost money?
Yes, they do. And running a business costs money.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that. But having a coach is so incredible. And I would just say, like, that's something, telling entrepreneurs to get a coach. Like, invest in yourself, because that's money that is well spent wherever. It's like getting a book. It's like going to Barnes & Noble and buying a book, right?
Yeah.
You're learning and you're taking in knowledge, and that's what a coach does. They help guide you. And if you get the coach that you actually want to be a coach, or you're in an industry where somebody's teaching on that level, like I've met a lot of hairstylists who are coaches now. And so if you meet somebody of that high level, high caliber in your industry, they tell you exactly what to do and not to do, right? Exactly. It's like that guiding light for you.
Yeah, they've been on top of the mountain.
Yeah.
They're helping you to get up there now.
Yep.
You can trust them as a guide.
Yeah. And so many people you should do this, you should do that, like it goes back to the shoulds.
There's that pile of should.
Yeah,
again.
it's a pile of should.
It's a lot of shoveling.
And so when you have a coach who's actually dedicated to you and your success, it looks a lot different.
Yeah.
And it feels in ease.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting, man. There's a phrase, something like, the most closed-minded people are the most open-mouthed. And it's like, it seems like the folks that are telling you, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should do that, are the people that aren't doing a thing themselves in their life, and it's just like, I don't know, maybe trying to live vicariously through you or just destroy you, right?
Ooh, yeah.
That's so interesting. The way that I think about it, like, and that I try to live my life is I want to give more in use value than I take in cash value, right? And your example about a book is exactly right. Like, you write a book, and you charge me $10 for that book, right? And I paid $10, but that book, it gave me $1 million idea.
Yep.
Right?
Totally.
Who won? We both did, right? You gave me more in use value than what you took in cash value for that book. I think that's such a powerful way to live our lives. And my guess is that it's exactly what you're saying about having a coach. Yes, there's a bill involved, right? Yes.
There's an investment.
But they're going to give you so much more than they're going to be taking for you.
Yeah.
Right? And that's been your experience as far as just, it's seemingly invaluable.
Not only the coach, but if you become part of a community with that coach, the people that you meet, it's incredible. Yeah. Like that's
a community like the Nest.
Yeah. Yes. So I that's really something that I know we're not. Are we talking about doing right or doing wrong? I forget. But
still on the right.
Okay, good. So that's something that I did right was invest in a coach.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we might as well move into what we did wrong, right?
Okay, sure.
Or excuse me. I've never had any failures. This isn't about me.
We collectively.
Right. So tell us about us. So same thing. Let's flip the coin. As you're looking back over the past, however many years of your life, your journey, etc. What's no more than 3 things that surface to the top of the mind. Like, man, if I could just have this and back, I would do it over again.
All right, I want to know, who's next? Who do you want to hear on what not to do? Which entrepreneur, which leader, which public figure in your network do you want to hear on the show? Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to be here. So let's connect me with whomever, and we'll sit down for coffee, a beer, or even a cigar, and together equip the world for success.
Take it away.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I'm definitely not editing this out. Right. So it's kind of fun because, I paused where we left off, and I asked her a question like what those failures would be. It was so dramatic. We were talking off air how it was like American Idol and Jess totally is better than Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah, don't put that on record.
and then I hit record again, and then I had it in my mind like she would just pick up, but I didn't communicate that. And then she had it in her mind that I was gonna intro it again. So here we are.
So
not gonna edit this out. It's gonna be hilarious. You're probably laughing.
Oh God, you probably looked at your phone to see if it was playing, but no, it was just me stalling and being like in my head about it. Okay.
Here we are, rock and roll.
So things that I did wrong.
Yeah.
And I know it's just like semantics, but like in my head doing things wrong, it's like there's a right and a wrong, but really it's just a journey, right?
Right.
So,
well, and that shows that you've got a really good perspective on failure, right?
Yeah.
That you can view failure as friend or foe, and for a lot of folks, they view it as a foe. It's like something to stay away from, to run hard from, and never acknowledge. You use it as a friend, as a coach to help you further, and in that way, it's like that. Then yes, it's very much something you move through, not like a final point in that sense. So yeah.
No, you feel fast, and then you get back up.
Yeah.
So I would say the first thing was trying to do it all on my own, not getting supported, lone wolfing it. That was a big one.
Yeah. What's so important about that? What if you can do it all on your own? Because I'm a Virgo too, and like I'm pretty good.
Well, you can't. I can do anything.
I'm pretty
but
talented.
Should I do it? Should I do everything? It's just like I've really learned where my energy goes, momentum flows, and so I've really been zoning in on what I love to do and what I'm good at, and let go of the things that like don't bring me joy. It's like I'm Marie Kondoing my life, and I'm actually getting supported with those things by people who love that stuff.
Was that The Art of Tidying Up?
Yeah.
Is that the book? Nice.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, we can do anything, but should we do everything?
Right.
So it's getting supported and actually being open to support and receiving support. That's been the hardest lesson for me to learn.
Yeah,
it's like I can say that I want to give this away, but when it actually comes time, am I going to give control and let go and actually lead?
I was just thinking as you're talking, like the trust aspect, exactly what you just said.
Yes.
And that's really hard, especially when you are capable, when you are talented, right? And there's a good reason logically why you should try to do everything yourself, because you feel like you can only trust yourself to get it done. But that then introduces the vulnerability, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And you're saying we need a team around us to check our blind spots.
Yep.
And then even though we could do a lot of things, should you be doing all of them? Could I not delegate to someone that could really own it and do it more wholeheartedly than I'm giving it time and attention to?
Yep.
I guess that'd be a process to be just aware of those things and be figuring out then what do we do with it?
I've learned so much about myself by having team members and people challenge me, and that I pushed away for a long time because I thought I was right. I thought, I got in that stubborn mindset.
Yeah.
And so really opening myself up and seeing that people are on your team. They actually want the success of everyone.
Yeah.
And so that's been a really interesting lesson for me to learn, for sure.
That's good. So how would you say that in a way, if you're getting coffee with a gal that wanted to, she could see herself in your shoes someday, and she was just getting started, what would you tell her what not to do? How would you say don't do this? How would you phrase it?
I think about a lot of the influencers that a lot of women follow, like Jenna Kutcher and Amy Porterfield and Rachel Hollis, and they're out front and center, but they have an entire team behind them. And so that's really how I frame it. And then it's like a light bulb goes off and it's like, oh yeah. Like you never think about it. You think that these women, these powerful women, are doing everything, but they're not, right? They actually knew to let go and surrender and bring people in and be vulnerable, which allowed them to scale faster, scale quicker, by getting supported. So that's kind of how I kind of frame it for people. That's actually, I like the example that you brought up, and I think that's so true in any sphere in life. And maybe a don't do this way of saying it could be like, don't believe everything that you see. Oh, totally.
Because you're exactly right. It's like in our day and age, we were just talking, I think, a few minutes ago about, Instagram face and Facebook face, all that kind of stuff. And the way that we see influencers and celebrities position themselves, it's almost as if they're just they do it all themselves, right?
Yeah.
And that's couldn't be farther from the truth. And you're saying it's like there's so much that we, it's even in this building. Like you look at the space, oh, it's so beautiful. But what you don't see are the 2x4s behind the wall that's keeping it up, or the bricks, or the foundation, right? And those are equally important to having a really strong and useful building structure, right? Yeah. And our lives are the same, our work is the same. If we're going to build something great, we need good architecture, and those are often what doesn't meet the eye.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's under the surface.
Yeah, that's so good.
It's the iceberg.
Yeah.
So then the third one would definitely be being more authentic, and I definitely was living for other people and caring about what other people thought. So I was not stepping into my vulnerability, authenticity. I didn't know. I remember my first therapy session, like 6 years ago, and the first question that my therapist asked me was, "What are your hobbies?" And I broke down crying because I did not have any. I was just in a space of not wanting to do anything, or not finding joy in things. And so that was a big red flag for me, that I took upon myself to learn more about who I am and what I like and what brings me joy. And also being vulnerable online. There are so many times when you see the Instagram profiles or the Facebook profiles and people are only sharing happy things, right? And so that makes you feel like, well, my life is really crappy. Like, what the heck? This person keeps sharing all this really great stuff, and I can't even get out of bed in the morning. And so I really took it on myself to share the not so great parts of my life and share my divorce and past failures that I've had. And so I did a 30-day challenge of lies that I tell myself. So every day I had a lie that I told myself, and I busted it up on Facebook Live. I had no idea what I was going to talk about, but I basically coached myself through my limiting belief. And I got so many compliments, so many direct messages that people were like, this is the realness that needs to be out there more.
Yeah.
And so that really helped me drive forward and be more of who I am in that process.
Yeah. That's so good. So when you say is that don't be strong, or don't be fake, or how would you say it in that way? How would you phrase it?
Be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think so many of us don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And so that's where the deep work, the uncovering comes in. I've learned more about myself being an entrepreneur than any other job, school that I've had. And so I really encourage people, if it feels uncomfortable, if it feels messy, go into it. Really dive into that feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say we want to compensate for our weaknesses, right? Mm-hmm. We want to compensate for the things that we feel very insecure about. Mm-hmm. And life would certainly be miserable if that's all we ever did was spend time on our weaknesses, right? And that's not what you're saying.
Right.
What you're saying is just be a real person, be a human. Yep. When you see whatever influencers or celebrities or role models that you have in life, just remember that they're human. They bleed the same as you do. Mm-hmm. And be who you are, right? Yeah. And sometimes one of the most powerful ways and most helpful ways you can do that is by sharing, even what you're doing today, some of what you did wrong in life, right? Mm-hmm. And leaning into some of that kind of stuff. And not just in vain, but you're hoping that someone else would find it helpful. Yep. And that's a really, really cool thing. We love to Photoshop our failures,
Right.
But life isn't all about duck lips and whatever, the selfie culture and it's just
face filters.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's just not to mention any names, but it's just crazy. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. It's so distorted. It's manipulation of who we are. Yeah. And then it leads us down to this rabbit hole of who we think we should be, who others want us to be. And we subtly, unconsciously do it. And
how much that would fuel discontentment. Mm-hmm. Exactly what you said, are those Snapchat filters or what are those? I don't have Snapchat.
Instagram has them too, but
where it changes your eyes and all that kind of stuff. And it's people start thinking that that's how they should look, or the optimal you would look like that, and you start to create this chasm between who you are and what some kind of AI algorithm tells you that you should be.
Yeah.
What a miserable way to live life, but yet we fall into that trap.
Oh yeah, especially running a business, right?
Yeah.
So I've really had to uproot a lot of what I believed to be true about, you don't share behind the scenes. My family's very private, so you don't share that. You don't talk about it. You definitely don't put it on social media, right? You don't broadcast it. But actually, I found so much power in sharing my story and getting connected to other people because it's just such like a vulnerable, authentic way to share.
Yeah.
And it connects. So.
And you have the aim of maybe this could help somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's totally my go-to.
Well, it is one of my main goals to give you more in use value than what I take from you in cash value. And so, man, I love that this podcast is for free. And I really hope that you are finding just incredible value. Who knows, maybe in one of these episodes, you'll take an idea that will be worth $1 million to you. And that's so awesome. If you believe in this and what we're doing here and you'd like to give, you can go to patreon.com/whatnottodo and you can give according to your heart's desire. But seriously, every little bit helps in our mission to equip the world for success. Thank you so much.
That's awesome. Yeah, so good. Okay, so imagine you're at coffee with a gal, like I said earlier, and she really wants to be the next Jess Hopp.
Yeah.
Right? She could see herself doing what you're doing, maybe having a business or two, loves what you're about.
Yeah.
And you say, if you only knew, but you want to encourage her, help her down the right direction. Also, you want her to avoid some of the mistakes that you made. Mm-hmm. So how would you counsel her to go about doing things differently? Or another way to think of it is, how would you counsel young Jess to go about and do things differently?
Young Jess.
Young Jess.
Oof.
What would you
I don't
tell
think I'd want to
Jess?
see. I don't think I could coach her through anything. Whew, she was a bit of a stallion. I don't know. I really love to start where people are. So I don't project anything onto people. I just really, truly find out where they're at right now, and then help guide the conversation. Right? Somebody could be just ready to hop into an event planning business and want to pick my brain on all things. And I'm that's cool. I will definitely do that.
Pun intended.
What?
Pun intended.
What did I say?
You said hop into.
Oh,
it's all right.
It's spring. People come up to me and say the weirdest puns. So yes. Yeah.
All your
hop
life.
into it. Yes.
I've heard them all.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're okay. Yeah, you definitely picked up on that. So yeah, I just meet them where they're at in the conversation. So I don't push, I don't project, I don't tell them what they should do. I just really get their mindset of where they're at now and give them kind of guideposts of what I see for them and where they could go. And it's just, tapping into what they actually see for themselves.
Yeah, so how would you, assuming that you don't want them to suffer needlessly, what advice would you give them to help maybe avoid some of the mistakes that you made? Would you share those mistakes and then say,
100%.
maybe do this differently?
Yeah,
what
100%.
Would that look like?
I get asked a lot about coaches, right? That's a big topic for entrepreneurs. Do I get a coach? How much should I spend on a coach? How much do you spend on a coach? What do they actually do?
Not all coaches are created equal.
Not all coaches are created equal.
Yeah.
Same with building a team. What does that look like? Should I hire a virtual assistant, which is a VA? Some people don't know what that is. Some people are very familiar, and not all VAs are created equal either. So it's just honestly diving into their mindset right now at this point and giving them resources. I love recommending books and podcasts. And
we're going to get there.
Oh,
we're going to get there.
Yeah, no, I've got some good ones in my head. And so just giving them resources to be hey, this is what I did, and this is what it took for me to get here. And so much of that is around mindset.
Yeah.
We can do anything we want to do, right? To what we were talking about earlier. But it's really grounding into what makes me happy. What do I love to do? Am I just doing this for money? Am I doing this, for somebody else? So I think there's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah. Would you say when you were younger, maybe in your teen years, high school years, or early college years, that type of stuff, how much has your mindset changed since then?
Well, before I hired my coach, I was I don't need a coach. So that clues you into my stubbornness and my I need to do this all by myself to prove things. It was honestly Brene Brown. I don't know this. I don't know her. I've never spoken to her. She's just been such an influence on me from books and the Netflix series that she does. And just, I don't know. looking at things differently. And when that was put in front of me in that way, I totally got it. And I was like, oh, geez, I've been doing this wrong, right? I haven't been clued into what I actually want. I haven't been listening to myself. I've been blaming other people. I haven't held myself accountable. I haven't taken responsibility. Like, all these things just came up for me in, like, this emotional way. Yeah. And then it allowed me to actually, like, pick through them and see what I was doing, you know, quote unquote wrong, and how I can grow and move to that next level.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, probably in our high school years, a lot of us would have been like, "What do you mean a coach? I don't even need my parents. I got this. You know, I'm ready to roll." And it is amazing.
God, you couldn't tell me anything.
It is amazing how much. Looking back, is just like, even if now, if maybe you're listening to this and be like, why would I need a coach?
Yeah.
That's one thing Jess is telling you. Maybe you should actually really consider.
Yeah. And it's not a hoax. It's not a scam, right? Yeah. So many people are like, I don't need that, you know. But is that actually your limiting belief getting in the way of your true success by you saying, I don't need that?
Yeah. I forget how. This might have been a Warren Buffett thing or someone else, but it seems like we have, in our day and age, we were very skeptical of anything that could actually help us along.
Oh my gosh.
Building our business, and everything's a scam. Everything's a get-rich-quick scheme, and I never want to do it. And all those Facebook ads that are targeting me, you know, that know more about my life than I do, you know, they're completely irrelevant. Yep. Well, maybe you should maybe stop and say, like, are they really? Yeah. Maybe I need to start talking to other entrepreneurs that have been successful, that are where I want to be, and say, how'd you get here? Yep. It's not saying don't have your guard up, right? It's not saying just go with everything and put your dollars wherever.
Right.
But don't be such a skeptic and just dismiss it and discount it, saying, like, that's just people are trying to get rich off me, I'm going to go up by myself. Yep. That's a painful road. I don't know. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, exactly to what you said. That is such a painful, lonely road when you think everybody's out to get you. Yeah. That's scarcity at its finest versus abundance, and just knowing that everything is happening for you and you're actually having that conversation to help guide you into a new way of thinking or being. So again, I was not thinking this way 2 years ago. And it's really helped me evolve and be around other women who are just incredible. And I never thought I could have that for myself.
But they're all out to get you.
Yeah, because everyone wants something from me, right? Like that was my mindset for a really long time.
Man, it's amazing. We probably wouldn't say it. We probably wouldn't say it this way ourselves, but like when we do feel that way, man, like that's really amazingly and massively like kind of self-centered. Like people, you know, I'm at the center of everyone else's world. I'm at the top of their mind, and so much so that they just can't wait to take from me, right? It's like, so once it's kind of like, just get over yourself. Like,
I've had to have a lot of those conversations. Taking myself seriously, for sure.
Yeah, that's so important. And thank you for sharing that. I think, man, we all should take a hard look and say, like, do I have the right team in place? Do I even have a team in place? Are there folks out there that, you know, that actually would be really helpful in helping to execute my vision that I need, right? And who's being, you know, drawn into my life that actually are those things, and why am I giving them a stiff arm? You know, so that's huge. And again, another huge benefit of why being in a space like the Nest is huge, or just being around like-minded people, or people that are more successful than you, and are where you want to be, so you can help to kind of level up on many different ways. Yeah,
you said something and it made me think of a comment that I hear all the time, like, oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to get supported, or I'm not ready to join the Nest. But actually you are. Yeah. You're in the perfect spot to do whatever you want, right? But we use these excuses to limit ourselves and to keep ourselves small. Because on the other side of that is success. And what could that even look like for our lives? It would cause change.
Scary.
And that's scary. That is totally scary. The unknown is scary. So taking action is something that I've really learned to dive into. Imperfect action.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. I love that. I mean, people think that, well, if I try to do this or build this business, it's going to be so risky. And they're failing to see that the riskiest position is to do nothing at all or to stay where you're at.
Right.
And that if you're not actually actively taking risk and trying to grow, realizing that like we have so much more upside than we do downside, you're dying. You're not really living, right?
Oh my gosh. I just had a conversation with somebody who wants to be a member of the Nest, and where we were a year ago was very similar, right? Like we were kind of like hustling in our business, grinding out, and then I just had this mindset awakening which pushed me forward, and she was still at the same spot. And she came to me the other day and she's like, in a year you've created like this. She was watching me, but she was still stalled out thinking like, oh, I can't do this yet, or I can't, invest this yet.
Yeah.
So that's where it's at. Risk.
Yeah.
Like betting on yourself.
Yeah. Going all in.
Yeah.
All in on Jess. Burn the ships on Jess. Right? Yeah, but you're exactly right. Yeah. Our listeners need to hear that. We all need to hear that. Every day we need to not worry about tomorrow, not worry about what happened yesterday, but go all in today on everything that we have to bring to the table.
So good.
Yeah. It's good.
Well, I'm really excited to share with you that What Not to Do has been gaining traction and momentum and experiencing some early wins, which is super exciting, and reminded me this show is about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. If you're part of a company, if you own a company, and you think your message would be really, really relevant and valuable to the folks that are part of this community, entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, and those aspiring as such, reach out to me. My contact info is in the show notes, and we can sit down and consider what it would look like to partner together in equipping the world for success.
All right. So one of the ways I love to think about life, it's like a rose, right? So the promise of that rose was always wrapped up in the seed.
Okay.
The capacity, the potential, the promise to become that rose was there from the beginning. But environment matters. Environment dictates whether or not that rose will come to full bloom, right? So it falls on blacktop, not going anywhere, right? If it gets a disproportionate ratio of sun and rain, not going anywhere. If the lawnmower or weed whacker comes along and cuts it down, you're like, yeah, well, nice meeting you, Rose, right? And I think human life is so much like that, that we have such promise and potential and capacity wrapped into us from birth, and yet our environments play such a big part in how we develop and grow and flourish.
So true.
And I think people are a massive part of that environment, right? And helping us to become all that we can be, all that we can bring to the table. And so I'm curious in your life, Jess, probably several folks, right? And there's ways that we're influenced directly by people that we've, parents or teachers or coaches, things like that. Indirectly by people we've read all their books but have never met in our lives before. We are influenced positively by being encouraged, and maybe someone in passing, a complete stranger, but told us that, hey, you can do more, and it sent us on to go do greater things, or negatively being told that we'll never be anything in life, and it spins us in the opposite direction. We become something great. Curious for you, who is that in your life kind of stands head and shoulders above everyone else, that if you took their influence out of your life, you just wouldn't be anywhere where you are today?
For me, it's my dad. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. My dad's a powerful influence for me, and
cool.
It's not always positive. Like any parent relationship with their children, it's strained at sometimes. It's loving. It's all the things. So he's been an incredible influence to me. When I was, he was a superintendent for a long time, so he was in education, and he knew everybody, and it would always just like when we tried to leave somewhere, it would be literally 30 to 40 minutes, and he'd have to say goodbye to every person, shake their hand, leave them with like a parting word, and at the time that was so frustrating, when you're a middle schooler and you're like, I just want to go home, but I learned so much from him by watching and being there, and we would be able to be at the school on the weekends while he was working, and like just seeing his work ethic really instilled in me a way that I could work, and still figure out who I am and be true to myself. Because he had a ton of hobbies too. So it was fun to see him be in work mode a lot and then actually dive into his hobbies and get a lot of gratification and love from those hobbies.
Cool.
I haven't mastered that yet, working on it. But, he's retired now and he plays softball and golf like every other day. And so it's been really great to have him. And, when I was going through my divorce, just like he was that person for me to talk to, and he didn't judge me, and I was just true at that point. I was just being honest with my life, and I needed that sounding board, and he was there, which was incredible. So my dad.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Our relationships to our parents, how we relate to them, changes throughout life. Obviously, but it's amazing. A good father never goes anywhere. A good mother never goes anywhere. And that's so cool. Really neat to hear. That's cool. All right, I really could care less just about the best advice that you've ever heard. I want to get into what's some of the worst advice you either hear floating around these days, or that you've been given somewhere along the way. So maybe you're cranking away at the nest here, and you hear Barb over at table 9. Tell Joanna that she should.
These names.
Hey, you should go do this, and you stop. You're like, no, that's the worst advice I've ever heard.
Put the brakes
Get
on.
out, right?
Yeah, let me pull up a chair.
Get out, Barb.
I'd sit Barb down for a coaching session.
Right.
Worst advice.
Conference room now. What do you think? What's the worst stuff? Cringeworthy.
It's hard to nail down exactly the advice, but there's such a differentiation between men and women, especially in corporate America. So a lot of advice that I got that did not work for me in corporate America was from men, right? Because just the way that the opportunities we were given, the ways that we could advance were very different. I remember going into my boss's office and I really wanted a promotion, and I worked really hard for it, and he looked me straight in the eye and he's like, 5 more years, give it 5 years. And in my head I was like, 5 years? I just kicked this out of the park, and if my male counterpart did it, I'm pretty sure you'd put them on the fast track. But for me, it's oh no, 5 years. We got to test it out. And so that was really frustrating to me in corporate. And then in the entrepreneurial world, I would say having, what's a struggle for me is when people tell each other, oh, get a part-time job, supplement your income with a part-time job, and then once you can get to that level, then you can become a full-time business owner or something. But what I did is I just ran right into it. Took imperfect action, and it was probably the best thing that I could do. But the entire time I was looking for jobs, I was like, is this right for me? Should I just go back into corporate America? But every time I did that, a door opened or a window opened, and I was able to step through it, and I didn't have to take that advice of go get a part-time job, work part-time somewhere and then build it up and get going.
I love both of that. Whether you're a guy or a gal, you have to be confident what you bring to the table. And if someone's telling you, hey, you should just wait 5 years, maybe you should. Or maybe you need to find a different place to go and hustle and work, you know what I'm saying? So I'm all for being patient. But you have to know the circumstance, you have to know the situation. Are things rigged, right? Are they rigged in your favor, or are they rigged against you? And that's so important. I'm not a huge fan of... I'm a fan of taking calculated risks and being thoughtful and measured, but I'm not a fan of waiting, generally speaking.
I'm very impatient. I know that about myself.
Well, it's because we're both Virgos,
I know, right? Virgo power.
and I actually love... I love your take on... in a sense, don't have a side hustle, right? Go all in on something, right?
And that's not conventional.
No.
It's definitely not.
Right.
But I have an opportunity that's available to me where I don't have a family. It's just me. So I can truly dive into it and take a risk on myself, take a bet on myself.
But even for someone that would have a family, you still have to take a calculated risk. Yeah. But I think sometimes we want to use that as an excuse why we're not. Oh, it's my family. Mm-hmm. Well, are you taking ownership? Like, how are you taking full? Is it really your family, or are you just using that as an excuse because you don't want to go risk? And I think for most, well, I think for most folks in life, we live on the floor. Yeah. Yeah. We spend so much time so close to the floor. Yeah. And if we would just get up and look up, there's a cosmos to be conquered, right? Our potential upside is so much greater than what we could lose. And really, what's the worst case scenario? Mm-hmm. So what? We move back in with your parents? Yep. Well,
done. Did that.
Do, right? you know what I'm saying? Like, or like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, maybe just tease us out. At the end of the day, like, well, that would suck, and it's not really what I'd want, but it's not that bad.
Right.
And what would you stand to gain? How about building your own business? How about freedom? How about doing something greater, right, in the world? And yeah, I mean,
trying.
I don't know, my thoughts, but this could just be the Virgo talking, so I don't know.
I feel like we're feeding off of it, so.
Yeah. That's good. No side hustle. I'm taking notes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to get these later. It's going to be great. All right, rock and roll. Well, last but not least, it's rush hour. Beijing to Green Bay, right? And billions of people listening to probably, Jess Hopp on What Not to Do podcast, because that's what you do on your commute. Yeah. Stuck in a traffic jam, especially in Green Bay, because we have traffic out here.
Bumper to bumper. When there's a train and a boat.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Yeah, right down here, a block away.
Yeah, down on Broadway.
That's madness. Yeah.
And farmers market, like those three. That's the trifecta. So, yep, I'm there.
Yeah, your day was just ruined. But they look up and they see a billboard, and wouldn't you know it, it's Jess Hopp's billboard. Oh my gosh.
Fabulous.
What message do they see? What message do you want the world to see?
Well, I have a tattoo and it's fearless, so it's probably something like that. Yeah, fearless. Yeah, pretty basic, simple, straight to the point. Just be fearless.
Why?
Because you learn so much and you gain so much by being who you are, and I think that's an incredible gift that we're given. And why are we limiting ourselves, right? Like, if you want to go do something, then do it.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Love it. I think we mentioned it before. I don't remember if it was off air or on, but our 5-year-old selves, pretty fearless.
Yep.
Something happened between 5 and 25.
Yep.
We need to course correct that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Totally feel that.
All right, this might be kind of pulling teeth for you, but I'm looking for book recommendations. So they don't have to be. You don't have to be your top 3. I'm curious. We've got a lot of listeners, and they're saying like, I love where Jess is at. I want to think more like her. I love her mindset. What 3 books? Feel free, you can give me more. It'll be okay.
I was like, I have to look at all these things I have right here.
Do you think are a must on people's bookshelves, and that they really probably should read sooner than later? Yeah. Like they'd be wasting valuable years of their life the longer they delayed these books. Yeah. I know, but for you, I've had books like that. Like, why did it take me so long to pick this one up? It's been on my shelf. I just haven't read it. So I'm curious, what one needs to be on the shelf and be read sooner than later?
I love this question. And I love that reading is like getting a resurgence. Do you feel that? I think so. I feel like people are like, what books are you reading? But I'm like a book person. Like, I have books in my bag, I can't do Audible. I really can't do that stuff.
I Chuck Norris my books with my pen, just all in.
Yeah. I know. I have posties. Old school. Look at this.
I don't do posties, but I probably should. That's great.
Well, the first book that really changed my outlook on a lot of things was Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. Okay. That one, I felt like she was speaking directly to me. And I don't know if you've ever read a book like that, but it's kind of along the lines of like, why are you waiting? Why are you not taking imperfect action, right? Why are you not just doing the thing? What's holding you back?
Why not?
Right. And it's a lot. I mean, she's a shame and guilt researcher, so much around the shame that we have around what we want in life, and the guilt that we feel when we actually put it into action, if we put it into action. So that one was super powerful for me.
Can we double click on that?
Yeah.
Quick? So just on that idea of feeling guilty for wanting something in life and or for getting it. I think well, so there could be fear involved of taking risks.
Yeah.
But I wonder for how many folks it's not more the fear of it, but this idea of like guilt surrounding it, like, I shouldn't really want that. I shouldn't really want to be successful in life because money's bad, right? Or if I'm successful in business, it's necessarily at the expense of others, right? Or if I want this house or to live here or to do this or that,
Right.
That's really interesting. And you're saying that book gets into that a bit.
It totally does.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, it's very mindset driven. And that's a lot of the books that I like to read are mindset books, because I feel like that's the center focal point to a lot of things. And so once we really tap into that our powerful mindset, it's not like thinking everything's positive all the time, right? Which I've had conversations with people and they're like, oh, you're just too positive. And I'm like, what? Okay. Yeah. I'm not. I'm a Virgo. Yeah. You've met us, right?
Yeah, I'm a realist, right?
Yeah, I'm a realist. But it's more of that like resilient mindset work.
Yeah, totally agree. We could talk for hours about that.
Oh, yes.
Next, numero dos.
I'm actually rereading a book right now. And I found it. She was on, I think she was on something for Oprah. And Oprah's the best. So it's called Presence by Amy Cuddy. And it's about, again, breaking through and really being your boldest self in everything that you bring forward. And a lot of it's around self-confidence and our own beliefs that we limit ourselves, and how do we change that. So she's again a researcher at Harvard, and she's gotten so much research on like how people project their self-confidence, or they don't have it and they want more of it. So she comes at it from like a numbers game, which is kind of cool as a researcher.
Awesome.
Yeah. So those are like the two that come to mind for me. And then Rachel Hollis, Girl Wash Your Face.
Okay.
It was really eye-opening for me, and she definitely shared her story in a more authentic and vulnerable way. And I didn't read it like cover to cover. I more skipped around, and because it's more like a journal diary entry.
Okay.
So you could just kind of like skip and read it and hear her take on a bunch of things, and that's actually what spurred my lies I tell myself, because the book's very similar. She goes through a lot of her limiting beliefs, and then at the end of that little section, she breaks down what she would do differently, how she would talk to herself in that moment. And so I mirrored her book on the challenge that I did for myself.
Yeah, and that was the 30-day challenge of
Facebook
Live, right?
Yeah.
That's actually just a good exercise. Not that someone have to do on Facebook Live.
No.
But just personally, we all believe a certain narrative about ourselves, and which one's true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yep. And when you put it out there to other people, they're like, I never thought you thought that about yourself, or how could you think that about yourself? You're awesome.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, oh, jeez. Some days.
Virgos are pretty self-critical.
Yeah, I know.
we're ahead of ourselves, right?
I know. It's like I can do everything better, faster, stronger, and yeah.
Absolutely. Jess, this has been awesome.
Well, thanks.
I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, thank you for being at the Nest.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's been so great hearing your story. Thank you for leaning into some failures. I think your story is going to be super helpful for the folks out there. We're going to be linking to those books in the show notes.
Yeah.
But also, I'd love for people, if they want to get in touch with you, they want to become members at the Nest, they want to hear more about what you're doing with the Planner Collective.
Yeah.
How can they get in touch with you? What's the best email or social, or what do you think?
Yeah, so we have social platforms for the Nest, so we're on Facebook and Instagram, and we have a large Facebook group for female entrepreneurs in northeastern Wisconsin. We're like over 800 women in that group, so that's pretty impressive.
That's awesome.
So join in all those platforms, and then you can email me. jess@thenestcc.com. And then for my event business and online launches, all that good stuff, again, follow on Facebook and Instagram. And then my email is jess@plannercollectiveco.com.
Awesome. plannercollectiveco.com. Cool. And it was jess@thenestcc.com. Cool. And I'll get those. I love the idea about the Facebook group. I think that'd be really helpful for folks. Just that kind of like feedback back and forth and conversation. So
it's an incredible resource.
Yeah. Cool. Very, very cool. Awesome. Well, Jess, it's been such a pleasure.
Yay. Yeah, Thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Wow. So one thing, I think maybe the biggest thing I took away from my time with Jess was consider the power of a year. Consider the power of 1 year. I think Jim Rohn said something like, you are never more than 5 years away from everything you've wanted. And I look at Jess and her story and how far she's come in 1 year. I mean, come on. Like, if that doesn't get you fired up and inspire you to want to go and live a legacy worth leaving, I don't know, like, why you're even still listening, right? Well, here, as long as you are listening, let's recap what Jess told us to do. First, she said, don't go it alone. Don't go it alone. This should come as no surprise. And yet, it's amazing how much we still have the tendency to want to go it alone, right? Maybe we don't trust others to help. Maybe we want everything on the plate, and we love everything that's on our plate, and we want it all, right? And we don't want to give any of it up or away. But life isn't so much about saying, or choosing between what's bad and what's good, as it is about choosing between what's better and what's best. So don't go it alone, and take other people with you, and be able to hand off tasks and things that need to get done to someone else. Secondly, don't believe everything you see. Don't believe everything you see. And this goes back to, just consider where you could be in 1 year. What is and what could be. And holding that vision, it's really, really easy to come up with a vision. It's really, really hard to hold it. And this gets into when you start to believe everything you see around you, and it contradicts and conflicts with the vision of where you want to be, it can tend to want to cause you to give up and not to hold that vision. That's when that lifting gets real, real hard, right? We call that powerlifting for life. To hold that vision despite everything that you see around you. So don't believe everything that you see. Don't lose the vision. Keep the hope. And last but not least, don't be somebody else. Don't be someone else. It's really, really good to have mentors in life. Really, really good to have people that you look up to and aspire to be like. And you say, hey, I really like that. I really like the way that they do this, or how they carry themselves here, or present themselves there. Hey, that's all fine and well, but let that come through who you are, right? So you got to understand who you are. And then any traits or qualities that you adapt to or adopt in life, make sure that those are being filtered through who you are, so they become part of who you are, not just you trying to be someone else. Well, I love our time together. I love even well, this is a little bonus here for you. Even what Jess was talking about, her worst advice. I usually don't recap this here, but I think it's important, and tying it back to the power of 1 year. She said, the worst advice she hears is, hey, give it 5 years. Go get your side hustle and just give it time and try to ramp it up on the side and all that kind of stuff, and maybe you'll get there. Look, the reality is that we are constantly wanting to hedge our bets, and there's something within our minds where we don't really go all in when we have other options. And I think it's really powerful. And this isn't necessarily prescriptive. You have to take this for your own life and consider your own situation, et cetera, and all across the board. But man, are you all in on you? Like, with what you're doing with your life, who you are, what you have to offer the world, what you're good at, what you enjoy, and what your economic opportunities are you all in on that? Where you're at now? And maybe you're not, and maybe you need to be where you're at now, and you need to be all in there. Or maybe you need to be doing something else and you need to be all in there. And maybe, just maybe, by going all in, wherever you're at, wherever you ought to be, will actually get you to where you want to be. And I want you to take that away. Just consider where you could be in a year. If you today go all in on you, consider where you could be in a month. I'll tell you what, a month ago, none of this existed, right? I've interviewed over 40 people. I've got 40 people scheduled out for a month, and none of it existed a month ago. crazy. The opportunities that have come my way, the people I've gotten to meet, the stories I've gotten to hear, to broker the conversations, and the impact I could have just by helping other people tell their stories. I mean, that's phenomenal. Where could you be in a month if you went all in on you? Well, I want to thank you so much for listening and remind you this podcast is about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. If you've been helped by this, share it with somebody else that you believe it would really help and impact. One way you can do that is to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, and share it with your network. That'd be awesome to take an episode that you really loved and to give your thoughts on it and send those my way. Next would be, who do you want to hear on this podcast, right? Who's been a source of inspiration to you, and who would you love to open up with their story and really lean into a few failures to help you be equipped for success? Maybe that's you. Maybe you need to be on the podcast. Don't be afraid. Reach out to me. I know I look big and scary, but I promise you I'm not. Just big and hairy. And let's sit down and get you on here and talking about what it'll look like to share your story here with the world. And if you're a company, if you think you've got relevant value to bring to the community, I'm looking for folks whose story I can help to tell. And so if that's you, and you think this community of entrepreneurs, leaders, and public figures, and those who are aspiring to be such, would be a sweet spot for you, let's help tell your story to the community here. That'd be awesome. Well, it's been said that good men learn from their own mistakes, but great men, they learn from the mistakes of others. So go and be great, and we'll see you next time.